Hello, namaste. How are you, everybody? My name is Bharati. Welcome at Spiritbalance Podcast. And today we're talking about a very, very amazing subject, the subject of astral projection, astral travel, out-of-body experiences, and also real psychic experiences. And I have a guest today. His name is Todd. And actually, I'm just waiting for him to come. So as we do this live stream, I will already start to tell about astral projection and about spiritual development in that field. And I just wait until he comes on, because on this live stream, I didn't want you guys to wait. But he has some technical issues, so he will be a little bit later on. So why I invited Todd today on that special podcast, because he had also out-of-body experiences when he was a kid. So I also had experiences when I was a kid. And when you have all of a sudden experiences where you see yourself from above, and you realize you're not your body, then there's something that is happening in your brain and in your consciousness, and also in your spiritual way of seeing the world, the way of thinking. Because before that happened, before that experiences happened, it's always something that is some concept, or if you hear the soul is immortal, if you hear that it's possible to have out-of-body experiences, but only those people have it, for example, who had an accident or had near-death experience, then it's their experience. And the special thing is when you really make that experiences yourself. I can tell from my experiences in all these years, it's really possible to learn that. It's not so difficult when you stick on it. It's like if you want to learn Japanese and it's not an easy language, but if you really want to learn it, it's possible you can learn it like that. It's also for spiritual experiences. What fascinates me, especially in astral projection, is also that, there are special souls like Todd who are giving knowledge how to achieve that level of consciousness. And one of the very famous astral projection guys, for example, was also Robert Monroe. I went to his place in America. That is an institute for learning astral projection. Unfortunately, he's not in his body anymore. But he was very, very special in the way of he studied the brain, and he found out there are special brain waves. Once that is active, everybody can have altered stages of consciousness, psychic experiences, and even out-of-body experiences. And so for me, that was very amazing, because I came from a Vedic tradition. So I learned when you meditate, then you get a raise of consciousness, and then automatically after some time that out-of-body experiences will happen. So Todd, I think, is a very special soul who combines that. So one way he is studying, the way of the brain works, same like Robert Monroe, also works with brain waves, but in a different way. He will explain that. But also what I find and feel with him, I only know him over the internet until now, but I feel I know him. I can feel him. Is that he's also coming from a very, very spiritual place. So he just came on. I'm so happy to announce him. And here is Todd. So I add you to the screen. Hello, Todd. Welcome.
Hi, Prati. How are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Thank you very much. Really good.
Great. I'm looking so forward to talking to you, because we are both the weirdos, for many people. There are a lot of weirdos, but there are a lot of people who cannot understand that there are people who dedicate their life, even like you do, to learn astral projection, or what I do. leading people through the darkness experiences, going into the darkness retreat, and then people also have out-of-body experiences many times, or seeing things in the astral worlds. And I see your posts on Facebook, and there are some souls like that. When I see their way of how they write, I just get it. It's just like a laser beam to my heart, and you are one of those people. So welcome to our special live stream. And
well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so great.
And I mean, I would agree. I mean, we obviously can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yes, it's perfect. Yes.
So there obviously people view us in particular ways. I understand that. But one thing I've learned over the years too, I'll use my grandmother as an example. My grandmother was a very fundamental Christian, and her belief systems really scared me. But then at some point I realized, her belief system scared me as much as my belief systems scared her. And I think it's really remembering, that we're all on a spiritual journey. We're all on a spiritual path, even if other people don't realize it. If we go beyond Christianity to, just an atheist, I like to view it that everybody's on a spiritual path, and it's getting to that point where it's just learning not to get too hung up on, what their path looks like versus mine. And I know, people are always going to view us in this strange light. But I think this is why ultimately it's a very individual journey, and we have to in a sense do our own science. I look at things like yoga. I look at Ayurveda, and I see these ancient sciences that, in my heart, they've proven themselves. For thousands of years they've proven themselves, and even science, modern science. There's so much that is just a hypothesis, so much that's just a theory, so much about reality we don't understand. Even with something like dreaming, science still hasn't been able to pin down what part of the brain that dreams arise from. And the reason that it's accepted is because it's consensus. Everybody has dreams, so therefore it's through observation. And the consensus that it's accepted, this is a reality. And then you even look at quantum physics, and do you not see really weird stuff in quantum physics that, maybe more fundamentalist science doesn't quite agree with? So it's all part of the journey, and I think we just have to get to a point of, as much as possible, accepting that we all are on a journey, but it's one of those situations where all these different roads will eventually lead to the same place. But yeah, it can be challenging for sure.
What was your most challenging experience on that path?
One thing I experienced last year I thought was hilarious, and this really sums it up well, and I'm sure most of your audience can identify with this. So I was invited onto another podcast, and this was it was in the United States, very well-known podcast on the paranormal. So, talking about paranormal topics, ghosts, UFOs, etc. And the host that typically interviews people was sick. He got sick the same day he was supposed to interview me. And so the substitute host, when I called in for the radio show, I was put backstage, just like, for your live casting system that you're using. And before we went live, this substitute host said, okay, look, Todd, I don't want to blindside you in the middle of the program. I want to be upfront with you right now. I'm not really into this stuff. I don't believe this stuff at all. I'm skeptical. And I was like, well, okay, fair enough. Okay, you work for a radio show that is all about the paranormal. That's weird. But at the same time, he works for him nonetheless. So the universe is obviously, whether he believes it or not, guided him to work there because there was something he needed to hear. But what happened next was the real interesting and revealing aspect of this. So we then go live, and I'm sharing a lot of my stories, and he's like, yeah, those are interesting stories. I am a little bit skeptical, but let me share one of my experiences. So then he tells me about one of his experiences. So he says, okay, so Todd, tell me what you think of this. So my best friend died last year, and it was about 2 weeks after he died. I went to sleep one night, And I woke up in a dream. I knew I was dreaming. I knew it was a dream. And I'm walking along this road, and this car pulls up and stops right next to me. And it's my best friend that's died. And so he then opens up the car door and he says, "Get in." So I got in. So he says he got in. He got in, and they're driving along. And his deceased friend in the dream says two things to him. He says, one, "My wife has lost her wedding ring. I'm going to tell you where she can find it." And the second thing, so she knows it's me for real and not just your dream. I'm going to tell you the pet name, like a personal name that I used to call her, like a nickname. Nobody else knows because it was like a sexualized nickname. So of course they wouldn't share that with anybody. So he told him those two important bits of information. He then said to the guy, "Right, it's time to wake up. Go wake up." And the guy said he woke straight up from the dream. He wrote everything down that he was told. He then called his deceased friend's wife and said to her, "Look, I had this strange dream last night with your husband, and your husband told me two things. The first one was a pet name that he used to call you, a sexual pet name." And the woman says, "Okay, what was the name?" And he said the name, and she was like so shocked because it was true. It was the correct name. And then he said, "Okay, well, there's one more thing he told me. He told me that he knows you lost your wedding ring because he's been around you. He's been around your energy a lot since he's died. He's looking, after you. He's making sure that you're okay. And he realizes you lost your wedding ring, and he knows where it is. And so he told me." And so the woman said, "Okay, well, tell me." So he told her. She put down the phone to go look for it because it was lost in the house. And like a minute later, she comes back to the phone and she says, "I found the ring. I found the ring. I found the ring." And so on both topics, the dream was 100% correct. And this is what the radio host said to me next. He said, "Yeah, it's really interesting, the dream, but I don't believe this stuff." I was like,
what is that?
How? That's what's called, very deep denial. And it gets to the point where doubt can get in the way. And if we don't do something to heal, the underlying cause, the belief systems that are stopping people from accepting the reality that they're being shown, then people will stay stuck. And usually it's all part of the grieving process, because any time we lose anything, even if it's a belief system that we're losing, a lot of times people associate grief with the loss of a relationship, the loss of a loved one through death. But, even something like a belief system, even something like the authority of let's say a government, it's very relevant right now in today's climate with, the pandemic. How many people are questioning the government? How many people are not questioning the government? But let's say the ones who are questioning the government, and maybe they see that the policies that are being written for COVID-19 seem to be more driven by political narratives versus actual science. If people see that, and then they see evidence of that, they start to lose faith in the government, or they might lose faith in the media. They're going to start to grieve, whether they realize what they're doing or not. They're going to get angry. They might go into denial. And all of those two things are part of, 5 different areas of grief. And I think it's the same for this radio host. He was trying, he had that classic cognitive dissonance. He had this old belief system, which was now colliding with this new experience. And he didn't allow himself to integrate it. He didn't allow himself to have the open mind that would allow him to, do the research. Because for me, one experience like that can be enough for somebody to go from an atheist belief or an agnostic belief straight into a deep spiritual awakening. Some people need more evidence than that. And you know what? That's cool too. But if you block yourself before the journey even gets started, you'll be stuck. And you'll stay stuck in the grieving process.
Yes, perfectly said. And I think that's also one thing I really saw you doing before all that Corona thing hit it, where something you did was synchronity. How you say in English? Please help me. Synchronicity.
Synchronicity.
Thank you.
So yeah, we.
Yeah. That is so cool.
Yeah,
so you start to walk and you just had a question in your heart and you saw what the energy will give you as an answer. Please talk about that. What is that about?
So it was about 10 years ago. I was sleeping, and I think it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. I suddenly sat up from what you could say is like an astral dream. To me, all dreams have an aspect of other dimensions of reality. The difference is the dreaming mind that can be very strong in all of us will obscure the reality that we're actually experiencing, mostly because from an earth perspective, from a human perspective, from a physical reality perspective, we don't understand how dynamic these other realities are. We don't understand how thought responsive they can be. A thought in these realities can suddenly, start to create. So if you're in a very personal space like a dream and you're out of body, but you're unconsciously out of body because you fell asleep unconsciously, of course, your unconscious mind, your subconscious mind is going to start creating sceneries. It's going to start creating, the dream environments based on unconscious thoughts, maybe things that you were thinking about earlier in the day, maybe things that need to be processed, stuff from the shadow that hasn't been, the unfinished development work that we all have to do still. We wouldn't be here on Earth if we didn't have developmental work to do. Sure. So for me, I think, when we fall asleep at night, we do very much start to experience these other realities. And so with something like synchronicity, when I woke up that morning about 4 a.m., I knew I'd just experienced something profound, and I had like the leftover information from it. And I was being told to do this new event, which I called a synchronicity walk. And the idea was that we would take dice and we would roll the dice. So we'd have 2 dice. And at first, just let them be normal, everyday dice where they just have numbers. Eventually, I started putting different things on the dice. So I'd make my own dice where maybe on one side of the dice, it would say, follow the white rabbit. And on another side of the dice, it would say something like, stay still for a few minutes, or go left, or go right, or go straight, or go back. And so what I would do is I will print off leaflets or flyers that have a date, a time, a location, and a little description of the walk. It's something that would say something like, let your intuition come for a walk across London. Let your intuition be your guide. Very simple stuff. And then a date, a location, a time. And I would post these in like bookshops, maybe leave them on seats on trains. And it was interesting that every time 20 or 30 people would show up. And one of the first questions they would ask me would be something like, so what's the plan? And I would always say, well, there is no plan beyond these dice. So these 2 dice, we will roll them, and the dice will guide us the entire evening. So we'd usually meet around 7:30 p.m. and we'd go till about 9 or 9:30 p.m. And I would always do this on the weekdays in the evening after people finish work, because I feel in my heart what, a lot of people, they leave work, maybe jobs that they don't even like very much. And they're stressed, they're anxious, they might be feeling depressed. So what do they need more than anything right now? They need to feel like they can recalibrate. They need to be able to feel safe. They want to be able to feel who they really are, instead of who they're pretending to be for this job, for this role that they have to play in order to have a paycheck. And that's for a lot of people. Fair enough, if like me, if you have a job that you love and you feel it's not even a job, it's like your calling, right. You're something that you're passionate about. That's completely different from doing something that just pays the bills. And that's how you see it. If that's literally your starting point for a job, this is going to pay the bills, then you have to find ways to really make a deeper connection with what you do. And I've had all kinds of jobs throughout my life, and there were jobs where I was always unhappy, but I wasn't trying to make a connection in a deeper way. And then there were jobs that I really found that I loved. And maybe because there were elements of things that, really were part of who I was. But I think it's like with anything in life, you have to find a way to resonate with something. You have to find a way to connect to it in some way. So anyhow, I do this after work in the weekdays because I want people to come. Doesn't matter how they're feeling, because I know before that walk is finished, the act of walking, the act of following intuition, the act of being who and what you really are in that moment by being present is the highest form of healing. It's the highest form of, moving out of depression. It's creativity. Creativity is literally the antidote for depression. So I'd say to people, there's no plan. We just follow the dice. We roll the dice. Every time we get to a street corner where there's more than one direction to go, we roll the dice and we let the dice decide which direction we go. And then we just follow it without any question whatsoever. Even if it leads us into an alleyway, we follow it. And let's say we roll the dice and we're getting really deep down the rabbit hole. We've gone left, we've gone right, and then left again, and maybe back. There's no way, we've forced to this in any way, shape, or form. We're just flowing. We're flowing like the consciousness of water. We're just going with what is. And then let's say we suddenly roll the dice and it's on that one side of the dice that says, follow the white rabbit. Now, the white rabbit would be a complete stranger. We don't know who it is. And we then quickly roll the dice again to get a number, and it might say 2. That means we would follow them for 2 minutes. So we then start the clock, and we don't follow directly behind them because we don't want people to think they're being stalked. We don't want people to feel like their personal space is being, intruded upon. We want to respect them as much as possible. We're just allowing them to guide us deeper down the rabbit hole, so it's taken completely out of our hands, out of our control. Because I find in a lot of cases, people struggle in life because they feel so out of control. Mm-hmm. And that's mostly because we're trying to control things that are out of our control. So it's like fake control. And I'll give you an example of that. That's something like the weather is a good example of that. If we know a storm is coming and we have to go out of our house to go shopping or to go to work, and we know the storm is coming, the storm is totally out of our control, but what is under our control? Picking up an umbrella, putting on a rain jacket, preparing for the storm. So it's learning to focus on what is under your control instead of what is outside of your control. And this is what I feel these synchronicity walks do, for people. It really helps remind people that a natural part of life is following the signs, and that the universe will give them. And then, like I said, we can just be like the consciousness of water. We can just flow with what is. Now, I know sometimes people need to have some rigidness in their life. They need some strategy. They need some routine, and that's perfectly fine too, because it's, again, like we know in spirituality, it's all about doing our best to strike a balance. We live in a system of duality where there's, supposedly good and evil. And it's learning always to try and find that balance point, never to be too much in one direction, because again, this is duality. This is for a system of learning. What's the point in being in nirvana, which is, it's not a system of duality. A place like an idea of nirvana is a place of goodness. It's a place purely based in love. There's only one thought system. Earth is a system based in duality. So you're going to go between these two realities. It's like two para-realities, just one in one planet. We have the reality of love and we have the reality of fear. And all day long, we're navigating between these two different realities. We're learning to prioritize love while we're still unlearning the fear that we've been conditioned with since we were born. And maybe before even that, because for most of us, this is not our first time on Earth. We've been like a pinball, in a pinball machine, back and forth between life and the afterlife, life and the afterlife, through the wheel of reincarnation. And I know a lot of people, even in spirituality, New Age spirituality seems to have twisted those ideas a little bit, like around reincarnation. The whole idea behind karma is it's based on our actions. It's based on all of our acts, which are intertwined with all of our thoughts and our beliefs and our feelings, our emotions. So it's learning to, through each journey, through each experience of life, to start to take responsibility for the thoughts and the feelings that keep creating the exact same behaviors. So, again, the synchronicity walks really help people see this. So let's say we're rolling the dice and the dice says go left. And then we walk maybe, I don't know, a couple hundred meters, and then the dice says, okay, now turn right. And now follow the white rabbit. And for 2 minutes, we're following a stranger. How do you think that's making most of the people feel? It's going to be triggering them. It's going to trigger their shadow stuff, around trust and things like that. Can we trust that I'll be okay? Can I trust that Todd is going to get us through this, that he's not going to lead us on to some journey misadventure where it ends in somebody getting hurt? There's got to be trust involved in this experience. So it's going to be pushing people's buttons on a very deep level. What if the stranger realizes we're following them? Will they get angry at us? What happens then? So a lot of the fear is coming up, and it's learning, like I said, to navigate between that love and that fear. And for me, when people speak of enlightenment, for me, enlightenment ultimately is the unlearning of fear. I think it's the only thing that truly blocks us from realizing, these deeper truths about reality, universal truths, or block us from channeling information, or blocks us from channeling our own intuition, because there are fears and there are doubts that still need to be healed. So sorry, go on.
No, please, that is beautiful.
So I love these walks because it pushes people's buttons. It helps them recalibrate their nervous system. It really, puts them out there on that psychic limb. Imagine you have a tree, and you climb the tree, and there's one branch. It looks dead. It looks that if you were to step out onto that branch, it wouldn't support your weight. It would break and you would fall. Sometimes we have, and I call that like the psychic limb of a tree. When we start out our journeys on developing our psychic abilities, we have to put ourselves on that limb. We have to be willing to put ourselves out there, to take those chances and those risks, to tempt fate, even, if you like. But as far as I'm concerned, there's ways to tempt fate. There's loving ways to tempt fate. And then there's very fearful ways to tempt fate. And I think it's learning to navigate those lines, because it's like the idea that there are like goddesses or gods, the fates, that will dish out, our reality to us, will dish out, deal the cards to us. And then it's up to us how to play those cards. But ultimately, when we learn how to look at those cards, to really understand what we're looking at, like the I Ching is a great example. Most people have probably heard of the I Ching, but how many people know the depth of that methodology, could literally live their entire lives by the guidance that they're being shown? And I think this is the same with synchronicity. It is a way for the universe. It's a way for our guides. It's a way for our higher consciousness to communicate with us. And when we learn the language, when we learn the language of numerology, when we learn how these higher unseen forces communicate with us through synchronicity, because synchronicity is something that binds all of us, connects all of us to each other and to everything across all dimensions of reality. There's been many times I've been out of body. I've had an astral projection experience. I'm on another plane of reality, another plane of existence, and I meet somebody out of body who I then meet in physical reality the next day. It's happened so many times to me now. So it's this, I know we're not just connected here on Earth, we're connected through other levels too.
Yes. And Todd, I had some experiences where I felt when I saw, you're not recently posting on Facebook, but sometimes then I felt, oh yeah, you're also very, very awake, because I saw some things that will happen in the future and before they happened. And some things are nice and some things are really absolutely not nice. How much you think we have the power to change it? That's my first question. So, because sometimes I feel pretty upset seeing things. Even I saw a friend going through some really shitty thing, and I knew that before that all played out. I knew it, and there was no way I could stop it, and it happened, And even I tried to tell her, he was not listening.
Yeah.
He was not believing because, where's your proof? Yeah, I saw
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And another thing is that sometimes I have still the feeling that we are shown that for a reason. So we are not the victims here. So do you have experiences like this also on things that happen for the world? You have experiences like this?
For sure. I mean, I'm shown things regularly in my astral projection experiences. And I think this is really important to understand that I think you're right. There are things that we're shown that I think seem like they're out of our control. And on a personal level, there is truth in that. But again, this is like with the COVID stuff at the moment, with coronavirus. There is so much that's out of our control.
Yes.
And we can see that there are maybe policies that are hurting us more than helping us. So when we're at that level of that much is out of our control, it's realizing, who am I going to be during this pandemic? Who am I going to be? How am I going to be during this pandemic? How am I going to act? And I think that is, something that, takes real courage. We have to, as much as possible, I think, to employ the idea of courage over comfort in such important times. Yes, it's very uncomfortable to have very hard conversations. But when we start to always put our comfort at the middle of a conversation, then there will be no authenticity in most cases. Because like Brené Brown, who's one of my favorite researchers, would say, when you put comfort at the center of something, it's like the definition of entitlement, in a sense. It's just like, this conversation is something that we all have to have. This is a conversation that's hard for all of us. And this is why I think even within the mainstream media, I think a lot of us see that there are doctors and experts and scientists that are part of the conversation. And then there are hundreds and thousands of nurses and doctors that are not being allowed to take part in that conversation. And that's hard for people to see. I know it's very hard for me to see, and I get angry by that. And I think, no matter how much we grow spiritually, I think we're always going to have, those potentials of things like anger with us. But the difference is, I don't see anger as being unloving or unspiritual. Yes. It's an energy in itself. What makes it unloving is if we use our anger as a weapon to hurt other people. If we use our anger to be passive aggressive towards other people. If we use our anger to shut people down. We might use our anger to call somebody a conspiracy theorist. It's just a way to gaslight somebody. Mm-hmm. And I think it's in hard times where there are big challenges for the world. Again, first and foremost, have a deep moral inventory. Who am I? What are my values? What are my morals? Who am I? This is the important stuff during times like this, because if you don't know who you are, you can be so easily influenced by other people. If you don't know what your values are, then you can so easily fall, into, these morality challenges, because there seems to be very little moral hazard at the moment for anybody. Even regardless of what side you're on, whether you wear a mask or you don't wear a mask, whether you're happy to have a vaccine or totally against vaccines. I think, enough of us are not really thinking deep enough. And I think this is part of the problem. And, for the world and for all of us, even on a personal level, I think having a deep inquiry about, where am I at right now in life? How far have I come? Being able to even look at, discern where you were a year ago, where I was 10 years ago, how far have I come? So I can look at that and think, wow, instead of always being hard on myself, look at the progress I've made. So we're not just saying take a deep moral inventory so you can see how dark you are, so you can see, that your dark side and your shadow is still winning. No, having this inventory, taking this inventory of your life gives you the opportunity to say, even how do I feel on a daily basis? Am I feeling depressed? Am I in denial to that? Because I find in spirituality sometimes we don't apply the label, the appropriate label. We're in denial to our feelings. It's like, oh, everything's good. How many times do you hear people say, I'm fine, or everything's good? It's all good. It's all love. It's all light, love and light. And it's just like, when we deny the label, we deny our opportunity to grow. We deny our opportunity to heal. If you're feeling stressed, tell people, let them know you're stressed, because people can't help you if you're always saying, it's all good, and maybe you're hiding behind spirituality in some way. You're just not accepting this reality, and therefore you're bypassing. You're not doing that developmental work. And that's, again, this is something we all do. This isn't the challenge just for a few people. I have all these really cool thoughts and ideas about reality, and I have some great mentors of my own, but that doesn't get me off the hook. Knowledge, intellectual, you can't just intellectualize this stuff. Intellectualizing stuff is not enough. At some point, you actually have to do, what people call the work. And, I know it can be glamorous to take the fast road, be in the fast lane and take the easy road. But, when we take, what happens when we take like the toll road, physically in our car, we're paying money so we can avoid all the traffic. But it's sometimes in the traffic. This is, I find important, like monks. People really are envious of monks, I think, of their lifestyle, being able to sit in a monastery, maybe on a mountaintop. And maybe that's the lifetime for them, because we're not just processing, our soul is not just processing one lifetime at a time. Our soul is operating beyond time and space as we're aware of time and space. It's operating in a state of reality where it can monitor, hundreds of lifetimes, its own lifetimes simultaneously. From our perspective, these lifetimes might seem like they're operating in the past. It might seem like they're operating in the future, or potential futures, probable futures. But in reality, to the soul, it's able to, multitask. It's able to multi-process from its perspective. It's like the mothership, and we're the scout ships. And the scout ships only have a particular level of technology that it can operate from, while it's getting deep into physical reality, deep into duality, deep into this system, this double thought system where we navigate between love and fear, because they're lessons. There are genuine lessons that, we decided, hey, look at this Earth life system. Look at this planet Earth. This is like no system of consciousness that I've ever dipped my toe into before. This stuff looks like, what is this passive aggressiveness? I want to experience that. What is that? I've never experienced that. It's one thing reading about something. It's another thing actually getting in the thick of it. So, if you're envious of maybe a monk sitting on a mountaintop, think about it. That same monk, if you took them off the mountaintop and you put them in a car and you put them on a freeway, a motorway in the middle of a built up area, and suddenly they're in a traffic jam, will all of the meditation that they've been doing, will it suddenly, they might be able to calm themselves down to a degree. They might be able to change their brain waves, but does it give them the emotional muscles? Do they have the emotional muscles to get through that traffic jam? Because there's a difference between changing your brain waves and actually doing healing work. And this is what bypassing is, a lot about. Sometimes people use spiritual tools like yoga, meditation, different healing practices to hide behind spirituality and say, look, I'm doing the work. When in reality, they might literally, their ego is using those tools to bypass, not take responsibility for the deeper work that's actually causing stuff. Instead of just masking over the effects, we're never really getting to the cause. So I think, for all of reality, it's learning to take 100% responsibility for our experiences of life. So let go of what's outside of your control. Focus initially on what is really under your control. Who am I? If I don't know who that is, who I am, I need to figure that out. What are my values? If I don't know what those are, I need to figure them out, because I need to start applying them, because, my world depends on me, and that's not like, what do you call it? That savior syndrome or whatever it is that they call it. Where you think, you suddenly have a spiritual awakening. You're like, oh my God, I have to save the world. And it's like, no, you're not the only light worker on the planet. You have, a particular territory, a particular area of expertise, and you focus on that, and you let the other light workers do their jobs too. You don't have to save the whole world. And it's just like getting over that God syndrome, if you like. So I think it is really important to be able to figure this stuff out. And these are things that are under our control. You just have to, go about your everyday reality. And as soon as you, find yourself, checking yourself, it's almost like you're doing a reality check. Just checking in every now and again. How am I feeling right now? Is this a good feeling? Is this how I really want to be feeling? Am I feeling really shut down? Am I always miserable around people? Do they see me as being miserable? And people might think, well, I don't have to change for other people. This is a childish way of looking at spirituality. This is a childish way of looking at human consciousness, because until we change human consciousness at its core, we don't change, the big old political systems, the bigger, social systems where we have all of our challenges. So it's, again, looking at the developmental work that needs to be done, saying, okay, this stuff is under my control. It is going to be hard. I may not have all the answers. I need to get myself a teacher. I need to get myself a mentor. Have some vulnerability. The vulnerability will allow you to have open, honest conversations with people that will be hard in the beginning, but they're necessary. Otherwise, we stay stuck in the grieving process for our entire lives. And then we pass through, the transition of death into the next reality where we are very much alive. And, out-of-body experiences, astral projection experiences can definitely, give people the evidence they need to do this, because this is one of my big things. Like 15 years ago, I set out on a journey to make sure that my loved ones, my deceased loved ones, were okay in these other dimensions of reality. Because, like my father died when I was 10 years old. I'm 50 years old now. So he died when I was 10 years old. I started having conscious out-of-body experiences when I was 35 years old. And one of the first things I wanted to do, I wanted to make sure my father was okay. Because I didn't get to have the closure, when he died. He died in a hospital when I wasn't in the room. I didn't get to say goodbye. I didn't get to, say to him, I'm sorry, that I messed up, and I used, drew all over the wall with toothpaste, and made you angry. I'm sorry that I forgot to take the trash out, the rubbish out. I'm sorry that you had to get so stressed because of me. I know kids blame themselves a lot, but nevertheless, if you can't even have the conversation, you can't have your mom or dad turn around and say, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were holding all of that on your own shoulders. That is not your responsibility. That's my responsibility as an adult. I'm sorry for putting that on your shoulders. So it's really important to be able to have these conversations. So for me to be able to get the closure by going out of my body, going to these other dimensions, exploring the afterlife, finding my loved ones, so it was like I was on a real mission. When I did get closure with my deceased loved ones, I then set out on a second mission. The second mission was to now help other people start to get closure. To help them get past their fear of death, to help them get past their fear of death so they can start to live for maybe the first time in their life without that fear, wrapped around their neck, right, without that as like a monkey on their back, to help them visit their own loved ones, their own beloved pets, to realize that these beings, these cherished beings, are out there and they're safe and they're happy in their new environments. But, literally the only two narratives that get discussed in the mainstream are science and religion. Everything else is pushed to the side. And it's like, this is a valid conversation.
Yes, and I also feel that there, with a religion, it's something you have to believe on. So you have to give your power away again, because, you don't prove it for yourself. Todd, did you had also experiences in higher worlds, like with other dimensional beings?
I've gone pretty far and wide in my journeys. So I'm coming up on 16 years of having these conscious out-of-body experiences. I actually teach this for a living now because over all those years, I've really figured out how to do it. I would say 9 times out of 10, if I lie down on a bed or sit down in a chair and I give myself the time, I give myself the space. So it's like I'm creating the set and the setting, just like they say for something like ayahuasca or taking any sort of psychedelics. It's all about set and setting. If I come home from work and I'm stressed and I'm angry, is that the perfect state for trying to have an out-of-body experience? No. I mean, even if you could get out of body under those, conditions, would you really want to? Because like attracts like. That's one of the fundamentals of our universe. So if I go out of body angry, what might I encounter under this influence of my own darkness? So for me, it's learning to be in the right state of mind for it. If you have a fear around leaving your body, first and foremost, you have to do the work around that, because sometimes you'll hear people, it's almost as if people are so happy to share their dangerous spiritual lives, like, oh, I had this out of body experience and there were these demons and they were doing this to me and they were attacking me and it took me forever to get back. And then they'll say, don't go out of body because, you won't be able to come back. And it's just like, no, look, astral projection is not the problem. Other beings are not necessarily the problem. If you're being guided to have a particular experience, yes, that is a lesson that is still not learned. It's just like, why do we keep, it's like they say, why do we keep walking down the same road? We keep walking down the same road because we haven't changed fundamentally. We haven't learned our lesson. But the important thing to remember is with every lesson comes a gift. It's a gift of knowledge. It's a gift of wisdom. It's a gift of understanding. It's a gift of vulnerability. It's realizing that when I, finally do make this change, when I do finally overcome this obstacle, there is a gift. That gift might be I'm now more vulnerable. The gift might be I'm going to be less passive aggressive towards my partner, and I'm going to actually be able to laugh at their jokes instead of pretend that they're not funny and make them feel really bad because I want them to feel bad because I want them to feel worse than me so I can feel better about myself. It's like, that's not spirituality, that's So yeah, I've had some amazing journeys on these higher levels, and a lot of the things that I talk about are based on these experiences. A lot of the wisdom and the knowledge that I share, I would say 99% of everything I share is based on my own direct experiences. I'll go to another dimension of reality, maybe a very high advanced level. I'll be on a world where it is very advanced, where they teach their children from a very young age how to astral project. It's normal on that world. And on that world, they're not longing to be back home again, and they may not even know where home is because, like us, how many people say, oh, I know I'm a star being, I'm a star seed, I'm a star child, but they don't have any more information than that. They just have a belief because they read it in a book somewhere, or they have a strong feeling about it, but they don't have any direct evidence of it. And that doesn't mean you have to have direct evidence for it to be true, because that's what intuition is. We feel something, that is linked to our truth. But for me, being able to have the direct experience where, you can then put your finger on it, it's like putting a piece of the puzzle in place. You now have another piece of the puzzle. You now know how to get back home. You now know how to go home for maybe the purpose temporarily, just for one night while you're out of your body. Your physical body is recharging. Now the essence of who you are gets to recharge on a fundamental level of, spiritual reality, to where by the time you've recharged on that level and you come back into your physical body, you're going to have a renewed relationship with physical reality. You're going to have a renewed relationship with your life because, again, you've recalibrated. Like in the synchronicity walks I was talking about earlier, when people go on these walks, they get to recalibrate their nervous system because they're getting variety. Typically, people, this is one of the fundamental needs that we all have, is for variety as well as for uncertainty. And uncertainty, when people think of uncertainty, they think about bad situations, because I don't know what that involves. I don't know about the unknown, so that's scary. But uncertainty is also variety. Some surprises are fantastic surprises. They're lovely surprises. It's just like, who doesn't like to be surprised with a gift, a very loving gift? So it's realizing we need we don't just, we shouldn't just be seeking the security of what we know, the known. So it's learning to go outside of that box, that comfort zone, and realize that classically, like for manifestation, anything that does not currently exist in your life, it doesn't exist in your life because it's outside your comfort zone. If that's a relationship that you're longing for, if it's a job that you're longing for, if it's traveling the world that you're longing for, and those things to date have, literally, escaped you, it's because it's outside your comfort zone and you're too comfortable in that zone. We have to literally learn to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, to push ourselves outside that comfort zone so we can start to manifest at the level that we're capable of. And I think a big part of the manifestation process is believing you can do what you're setting out to do. So, it's all this stuff that I get while I'm on these higher levels, all these downloads. I get to sit in like circles with these beautiful evolved souls that are mentoring me while I'm recharging these beautiful energies. And then, maybe I visit some of the in-between territories where it's like the astral planes, where it's wish fulfillment. People are still acting out the things that they didn't get to do here, or they're stuck in limbo states. They're stuck in purgatory states. And all of this is self-generated, just like a typical dream would be. When we go to sleep at night and we have nightmares. Nightmares are ultimately showing us our shadow, showing us the things that are not been processed, the things that we've pushed down, the stuff that we society has made us feel is unacceptable, and therefore we've just pushed it down, we've ignored it, we've swept it under the rug, and it's now, I find that one of the things that guide our lives the most is unfinished business, things that we've chosen to ignore.
Todd, I have a very important question for you. What do you think, how much percentage if we are really aware of certain abilities, and when, different astral projector people would come together, and if we kind of, connecting to high divine vibrations, how much we can change this reality here right now on what is happening on, let's say, timeline, because there are days where I feel, we're really creating a lot of things, and then, for example, in my experience, I think it's almost 5-6 days ago, I felt a real deep shattering in my heart. I felt something in this matrix we're incarnated is something not good will happen. So I felt it so strong. It was nothing I couldn't explain. I just cried. It's just like, it's a feeling. It's like an instinct. And I feel like, wow, if we have so much creating power, I know that. And my question is right now, what do you think, to how much percentage we can download certain good vibrations, manifest them here, how much our work on working on ourselves all the time? Because what I hear from you, I'm just amazed at just the things I'm also realizing so much, and it's really the work on ourselves all the time. But how much do you think if we do that also for the world we're living in, not just for our own little small needs, our partners and money and this, but, for this earth we're living on, how much do you think we have an impact, and how much people you think we have to be aware to really create this heaven here on earth?
Wow, yeah, that's how deep can we go? Let's see. Let's start with despair. Okay, because a lot of us, let's look at the Matrix, the film The Matrix. What does Morpheus say to Neo at one point? He says, "We don't wake people after a certain age." Now, Why do you think that is? The reason for that is because you're potentially waking people into despair. You're waking them into a place where they feel there's no hope, that the government is bigger than us, that the elites, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call these criminal elites that run our world, you might think, there is no hope. I'm just one person. What difference can I make? That is exactly how they want you to feel. They want you to wake into despair. They want you to feel like it's hopeless. They want to take all hope away. And this is really a big starting point for all of us, because if we don't get to grip with our own despair, we are completely and utterly useless to everybody. So we literally have to start on the personal level. We have to start very close to home. And I made a post recently on Facebook about standing up for ourselves. And to me, standing up for yourself, that, it does start at home. It doesn't start out on the streets. It doesn't start with protesting. It starts with what I said in the very beginning of this podcast. Who am I? What are my own values? Because if I'm at the moment prioritizing my fear over prioritizing my love, I'm not going to change. And if I don't change, how can I help the world change? So I think fundamentally we have to look at our own despair. We have to look at our own depression. We have to look at our own anxiety. We have to realize that if we're stuck here, what do these feelings make me feel? Do they make me feel really small? Do they make me feel insignificant? Do they make me feel like there's no contribution that would be big enough? Because one of the core human fears, one of the biggest fears is not enough. Not enough. No matter what I do, love is not more powerful than fear. What if fear is more powerful than love? If that's your starting point, you really have to look at that. You really have to look at that. So we then go on from there. Something like Manifestation 101, the Law of Attraction 101. What's the foundation principle for the Law of Attraction? Like attracts like. So no matter if I'm feeling good or bad, if I'm thinking in a good way or a bad way, the energy starts to grow. Now, this is where it really goes wrong for a lot of people, because they then assume that if I look at the darkness in the world, I'm giving it energy and it will get bigger. No, that is not how it works. But that's how the ego will twist a very good spiritual principle. That's how it hides behind spirituality. It says, I can't look. I can't look at the darkness. I can't read the news headlines. I can't look at the news. I've got to cover my eyes to it, because if I look at it, I give it energy. That's not how it works. If you look at the darkness in the world and you project your own fears outwards onto the darkness, yes, it grows.
Oops.
But there's a difference between looking at something with love.
Is a little bit gone, but I think he's coming back. So,
am I here?
So he's going dark. His frame goes dark, but I will see him back soon, I think. It's interesting. So lost the connection. So it's also inner work we're doing all the time. It's a frequency work all the time. And I think also that is the agenda of what is played here in this fear-demic, plan-demic, to create a certain frequency. And they're doing a very good job in that. And when you think you got it,
hello? I think we lost the host, actually. I'm just going to talk for a minute because it says it's live on my screen, and we just. Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Down. Okay, we're talking so much matrix that just down. Here we're back on.
Nice. The darkness cannot stop us.
Right. And the matrix cannot stop it. That was really funny. And actually, I have to say, exactly everything you say, I work on that and I resonate on that so much. And I had like some weeks where I really felt, I got it now. No, I got it. And then, I feel that was a plant again that's so big. I mean, I had experiences where it freaked me out myself. I had a visit in the future, and I saw myself in another incarnation telling me what will happen on the earth, and that people will get changed into robots. That is now, I don't know, it's like 2 months ago or something. And that there will be something put like in the eye. And the thing is, I had no clue about that before. I mean, I knew something is going to happen, something is off with that thing and with the 5G and the different connections, but I didn't know. And in that experience, that was so real, it was so amazing. Somebody put a tape around my eye, it was in another body. I was in another incarnation, and it felt like like having a robot thing there, and like a tape,
It's
but
an
all of a
implant.
sudden it was yeah, and all of a sudden it was a metal, and I knew, oh my gosh, they tricked me. They tricked me because I knew I fight it for so long. I fight it to stay human. It's all about to stay human. That I could not get changed by DNA. So after that experience, I was like, I mean, it's just, I made it short. It was a huge experience. After that experience, I just found out about that. A crazy idea, that people
Transhumanism.
have. Yes. And I didn't know that before. And now I'm learning all about that. And it's like, wow, 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 wow.
Yeah.
So that is very interesting.
That is really interesting. And Bhakti, and this is just it though. I mean, we're connected to the all that is. We're connected to that 0 point field where all of this information exists. Once again, it's getting to a point to where we are capable beings, capable of channeling this information, because ultimately it's learning to take care of your nervous system as an example, because your nervous system is like your psychic antenna. And if you're not taking care of your nervous system, if you're constantly stressed, if you're constantly in a state of anxiety, you're not going to be able to focus your antenna and connect with the signals to this information. And I think that's part of what we're experiencing here. And I do think, and believe what you experienced in your dream or your out of body experience, astral dream, whatever it was. I think that yes, one of the agendas for the global elite, for these technocrats, is to lead us down the path of transhumanism. And,
Yes.
because ultimately they want to control our minds. And if you can control our bodies, if you can control our nervous systems through implants, through microchips, if you can change our, control our behaviors, you're controlling our minds on a deeper level. And I think the transhumanism gives them that opportunity. So, and it's interesting that a lot of people that, hear that, some people will be like, well, but that sounds, they romanticize the idea. Now, look, if we lived in a world where our governments actually loved us instead of wanted to kill us, then I would be up for some of that transhumanism. What's wrong with being, having some cyborg implants? Because, it's like with our smartphones. This is effectively makes us an AI. This is artificial intelligence in our own pocket. So in a sense, we're already part cyborg. But the difference is here, we don't live in a world where our governments care for us. We live in a world where it seems like they want to hurt us. It seems like all they want to do is create the situation for poverty and then blame poor people. It's just like, that's not a government where I trust enough to put my entire soul in their hands. I don't trust them that much. Okay, so no, their version of transhumanism is not for our benefit. Their version of transhumanism is for their benefit. No different from 5G. 5G is for the Internet of Things. It's not going to help us really a lot in our everyday lives. It's going to help them with their CCTV surveillance. It's going to help them, really invasively look into our lives and spy on us more than ever. That's what 5G is being, created for. It's for their benefit. It's not more for our benefit. No matter how much they want to spin the information and the marketing on this, this is for their benefit. Transhumanism is for their benefit. Vaccines, I don't want to go too deep into some of that stuff because there'll be plenty of us with our different belief systems around this. And most people who are Facebook friends with me know my personal beliefs on this stuff. But what I don't do is I don't just floodlight people. I don't just, sort of take everything I've learned over 20 years and try to condense it into 5 minutes, because I'm then creating this incongruity. They don't have enough information. Maybe the information they have only goes as far as the mainstream media. And I think when you're communicating with people like this goes back to what I was saying about Morpheus in the Matrix. If you give people too much information too fast, you're going to create despair. You're going to create anger. You're going to create, this massive disconnection within them, and it's not going to serve them. I remember probably about 10 years ago. I was standing on the street corner here in I think it was down in Brighton, which is a city south of London. And I had a sign that I had hung around my neck on my body. And it said, free workshop on lucid dreaming. And I was handing out.
I saw that your story there.
And I was handing out these leaflets. And this young guy came up to me. He was maybe 20 years old, and he took a leaflet. And just like now, I had headphones in my ears, but I was actually talking on the phone. The phone was in my pocket, and this young man couldn't see that. I was talking to a friend. And when the guy came up to get the leaflet, I said to my friend, look, I'm going to have to call you back. Somebody wants to talk. And the guy on the other end of the phone was like, no, keep me on the line. I want to hear. I want to hear how you red pill this guy. I want to hear all the red pills that you give him. And I was like, okay, fine. And so the young man started asking me about lucid dreaming, started asking me, about some deeper questions. And I took him as far as I felt was where he was. I had to be transparent with where he was. I had to really, have the empathy to realize that. Hold on one second. Sorry, I almost lost my computer power. I had to really be aware of where this guy was on the spectrum of his spiritual awakening. So I had a responsibility. Every word that comes out of my mouth, as far as I'm concerned, I have to really understand my audience. I have to understand who I'm talking to, because, the things that come out of my mouth can either hurt their journey, get in the way of their journey, completely, send them into a tailspin. It can send them backwards. So as a teacher, I like to see this as, I want to be one of these kind of teachers where I give just the appropriate amount of information, and then I stand back, hands off, and I let them do what needs to be done next. They need to process that information in their own time. So basically, I took this guy as far as I felt was necessary. So it was just outside of his comfort zone, just outside. And then I said goodbye, and we went our separate ways. And the guy on the other end of the line, he was like, why did you do that? Why did you do that? You had that guy. You had him by the neck. You could have just, you could have told him about the aliens. You could have told him about reptiles. You could have told him about, all those other things. Why didn't you tell him all those other things? And I said, because it would have scared him to the point to where all the other information I shared with him would have just been completely useless, because he would have went into a deep state of fear. Mm-hmm. So what I did instead was I left him on the edge of his own comfort zone, and then I walked away. Because on the edge of somebody's comfort zone, it's now up to them what happens next. But if you take them too far out of their comfort zone, you can cause more damage than what it's worth.
I realize that even with family members and friends, it gets a little lonely up there here. Sometimes it's so cool to talk to you, Todd, and there are a few friends like that, and as I said, other weirdos, but it's or other reallys, or I don't know how we say it, but yeah, it's true. And I realized also that sometimes I just call my mom to ask how her gardening is. It's
for sure.
There's certain I cannot even say anything.
You literally just nailed it right there, because I think it's like sometimes we don't focus enough on the everyday reality. Yes. And I think that too, there's a danger there. There's a danger with ignoring the everyday. Yes. So yeah.
There is gone again. So that is interesting. So it really seems to be very important of what we're talking. He's just completely gone out. I never had that happen before on the live stream. So I want to say, I want to use that time. I see your comments. It's really beautiful. Right now you're here. I let Todd talking a lot about his experiences, and some of the comments are about, feeling lonely, not being connected, not feeling enough, being online with other people. And that's part of the spiritual process. It's also when you see different souls, and if you see things you don't want to see, and you see their good energy in their heart, it's hidden on some things. And, there's so much going on. And that is where we have to get our strengths back, from God. We have that is our work. Todd talks about right now. That is the work we have to do. That is the work on our blockages. And what Todd just after he was taken off or whatever happens here of the live stream just explained is very important. The daily work, and the love we have for our daily routine and things. And I think that is especially for very sensitive souls. In the comments I saw here, Rachel, that you feel everything. Yeah, that's part of being empathic. I can relate very much to that. And what helps me a lot is going into the nature. And even there today, I felt I wanted to do a very nice audio to a very special soul since some days ago already, and I just didn't have the right moment and the right time because I feel there's some disturbance around that. It's just very interesting. And so I drove out with my car, not doing it at my place, and just started, and I wanted to just talk from my heart certain things. And when I really wanted to come to the point, somebody was driving on a bicycle and started shouting on me how I parked my car. So it was really interesting. It's really interesting. And I had to go away with my car. So this is, how the nature is trying to distract. And also there's so many challenges and there's so many ways of how we again come into our own energy, again come into love, again come in the connection. And I think also a very important point Todd just made in talking was also to see your vulnerability, and that is very, very important to stay in touch with that, to not get hard and not also don't feel above. That is I mean, after a certain amount of seeing things, you don't even feel that because it just sucks to be awake most of the times to see things other people don't see, because we have this natural feeling we want to belong. We want to belong, we also want to belong. Everybody wants to belong. So all of a sudden you cannot talk about certain things, or I had many times experience where my husband said, oh, just, one time in a week for half an hour, you tell me all the things you just found out. It's just too much for me. Okay. And I can understand him. And I'm very thankful for him keeping that matrix running we're living in. He plays a lot of that structure work is coming from him, for example. And so that is a real balance we have to do here. And so, yeah, it's big subjects. And beautiful questions from you guys. I have here one question. Maybe you have something to say about that, Todd. And then, Todd, if you want, I would love to invite you maybe for another podcast live stream, because I just feel there's a lot to talk about that. So if you want to agree, because I feel we can go on for hours here now.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. Completely agree. I think it's one of those things, though. It's just like when you do get into the company with people who are like-minded, right. you don't want to let go. You don't want to let go because, we feel so alone sometimes. We feel like, oh, it's just me. It's just like, but this is like what you just said before I lost connection. It's one of those things where it's just like we have to remember the everyday life, because we can focus too much on the bigger realities, and it's just like we have to learn to focus back into the present moment, the here and now. And I think this is one of the reasons why a lot of people in spiritual circles sometimes are not very into astral projection, because they think it makes you ungrounded. I think that's actually the furthest from the truth. I find it actually can make you more grounded, because you're starting to discover that you're more than your physical body, which again helps you start to work through your fear of death. It helps you get closure around your deceased loved ones and deceased pets. So that helps you ground into your body more, because you now know they're safe, they're alive, and you don't have these burning questions that keep you awake at night for the rest of your life. That's not very present if you're constantly in the fear of death. If you're not very present if you're constantly obsessing about the past, or if you're anxious or stressed about the future, that's not presence either. So as far as I'm concerned, it's almost like with every astral projection experience I have, you know, those old vinyl records, you know, that we used to have, you know, back in the 80s and 90s and 70s, you know, the records, and they have the grooves, the analog records, they have the grooves, you know, in them. To me, it's like, you know, when you then take the needle and you put the needle into the groove and it starts to play, you know, music. I see astral projection in a very similar way. With every astral projection experience I have, I am creating a deep groove between this reality and who and what I really am on these higher states of reality. And I'm bringing who and what I really am into this reality. And this isn't some projection. This is real. This is deeply real. And I feel more connected and alive in this reality than I ever have before.
Absolutely, I'm too. When I astral project, I feel so happy, and I feel like, you know, as I slept enough, which I don't have every day in my body. And I'm not just that, I'm rested and had holidays and everything, and just everything is so alive and so aware. And, you know, some of that experiences are also so mind-blowing that it gives like such an amazing gratitude for being here and seeing the connections we have to other souls, and also seeing a bigger picture, even though it might be sometimes very depressing, because some things we see, which is planned for this earth, might be not so great, but I had experiences being in other plans. So that's why I ask you that also. And, you know, and one, I didn't want it to go away, and they kicked me out. They said, if you don't feel that grief in your heart, you cannot come to us anymore. At that place, they have no clothes. They're having a heart which shows immediately what they feel. You know immediately what a person is feeling. There's no hiding. There are no lies, nothing. No. And I was like, wow, on what a planet I landed on Earth. Just let me be there. Just let me drop my body and be there. They're like, no. Even if you're not living your life fully on Earth, fully alive and living your mission. And, you know, they actually really cut that, connection. And that was one of the most amazing experience I had with that people there. And I forgot even to ask who they are, where they're from. I had no clue, but they told me like hours. I was hours in the world, and I have them so much in my heart. And now I feel it's the time. I really want to reconnect. That is now is really the time. So you know, that experience, if you have that and you're using that to your life now and integrates that in your life now, and so that there's nothing that can be healing like that experiences.
I would agree. And I mean, the number of people that come onto my workshops and they have an out-of-body experience and they have something like that, which is what you just described, where these beings are aware of us. They know where we come from. And at the same time, they're reminding us, look, you chose this journey. You weren't forced into this. You chose this. The only difference is, you know, you don't remember, but that's part of it. The number of times I've been out of my body, and I'm always the same when I get out of body. I get out of body, and the first being that I come into contact with, I have 20 questions. It's like I've got 20 questions, always the same questions. Do you know who I am? Do you know where I'm from? You know, do you know what Earth is? Do you know much about her? I just pepper them with questions. And there's certain questions that they're able to ask and willing to answer. And then there's almost like this prime directive, like in Star Trek. There's certain information they're not willing to give you, because think about this. Let's say Earth is actually a virtual reality system, a very advanced virtual reality system. And let's think about even 40 years ago, you know, we didn't have, we were using Ataris, Commodore, you know, very basic computers to play very basic games. Now we have photorealistic virtual reality, you know, goggles and systems. So much to the point, right here in London, we have a spa here in London. We call it the Mind Spa. And we have some virtual reality program, one in particular, which is amazing. It's called the Plank program. And basically, it's just you put the goggles on and you're presented immediately with this room, which is just 4 walls. and you're standing on a platform which is just big enough for you to stand on 30 meters up in the air in this room. And so there's a pit in this room. And then there's this plank of wood, this wood that goes from one side of from one wall to the other side of the room. And you have to then walk across the plank to get to the other side with 30 meters below you of just a pit, just a hole in the ground. 95% of the people that come to our spa who put on the goggles will not move. They're literally, their brain is like, this is so real, and it paralyzes them. They won't walk the plank. And yet they know they've just come in from the street, from their house. They've come to the spa. They walk down the stairs. They come into where we're at. They put on the goggles, and they know they're standing on a wooden floor, a real floor, but yet their brain is like, no, I'm not walking on that plank. Now, think about base reality. Base reality would be, this is our grounded reality. So Earth is our grounded reality. It's the reality our awareness, our consciousness is plugged into. Now imagine a very advanced civilization that has gone through all the wars, gone through all the traumas, gone through all the famines, gone through all the bad stuff and all the good stuff. And they actually survived. They didn't have a nuclear war that wiped them out. They got to an advanced stage to where they could then exist in hyperspace, just in hyperspace. And hyperspace is just not some nebulous reality. It can be other physical realities on these other levels, but hyperspace is that sort of reality in between that, you move between one reality and another, between one lucid dream and your waking life and an out-of-body experience. And when you get to another level, you're moving in most cases into another virtual reality system. And they're all very advanced. For me, from my personal experiences, and this is just my belief, from all of my experiences, I believe we are literally living in virtual realities. And this is not base reality. This is not, the reality. It's almost like these realities are being projected from a deeper source. Mm-hmm. And these are learning realities. These are realities where we can experience the wars. We can experience the famines. We can experience, all the good stuff, all the bad stuff. Because in these environments, we can grow without actually destroying the civilization that we would call heaven. Heaven has this metaphorical gate that you walk through.
Yes.
But these gated environments, they're not gated, nobody keeps you out but you. It's your inner vibration. It was like what you were talking about a moment ago. Your inner vibration, all of these realities, just like the one you visited where their hearts were right on, out in the open and you knew what they were feeling. They're wearing their heart, what we call on their sleeve. You know exactly how they feel. Can you imagine living in that reality and you haven't even learned to control your own thoughts? Yeah. That kind of reality that you're talking about, where those beings lived, would be very thought responsive.
Yes.
Heaven is very thought responsive.
Yes.
If you have a good thought or a negative thought, you can create what's called a thought form instantly. Instantly. Can you imagine being in heaven and being a little devil, where you're like a baby of consciousness. You haven't learned to control your thoughts or your feelings.
Thank you for remembering me, Todd. What I don't understand in this reality, why we forget again and again and again. This is so thick. This is so thick. Even you tend to forget, or you do, or you never forget.
I think there's reasons for it. I think there is a reason for the forgetting. This is one of the things I was trying to explain. When I'm out of body sometimes, and I know somebody knows the truth about Earth, and they won't tell me the full picture, partly because, and I have another friend who's a really amazing out of body explorer, and we talk about this all the time. And we've come to the conclusion, it's not that they will get bad karma for revealing the truth to us. It's almost as if we made them promise not to reveal it to us. Even if we come out of our bodies and we're like little babies kicking and screaming, if I can get this far, if I can get away from my body, if I can travel this far, surely I have the right to know who I am. This is like, no, you made me promise that not until your death and you transport yourself to the next world, that I am not going to ruin this experience for you, because you chose this. You paid the credits, whatever it is that you paid with, you chose to be here, and you chose to go through this because you can be the light in a dark place. You're supposed to be a light in a dark place. You're not just supposed to be a light in the light. What point is that? We're here to grow through the darkness. I remember I started taking DMT last year, and this powerful psychedelic substance, which is one of the chief components in ayahuasca. And I wanted to learn how it was made, because I'm not going to just take something that, somebody's, oh, look, this is a psychedelic. And I say, okay, well, DMT, it sounds kind of, scientific. What is it? And they're like, oh, dimethyltryptamine. Okay, so that's the scientific label for it. That's not saying, it's like psilocybin. That still doesn't tell me it comes from a mushroom. So I want to know where this stuff comes from. So to extract DMT from the bark of a tree or plant, a root, you have this process it has to go through. And some people, to create what's called Freebase Dmt, which you would then put in like something like a bong, and you'd then smoke it, and you'd have 3 hits on the bong, and then pooh, you're off into hyperspace. In order to extract it, you have to use some harsh chemicals, like lighter fluid as an example. So for Freebase Dmt, you literally do all this extraction technique, and then you one of the final stages is you put it in a freezer with lighter fluid, and then eventually it starts to crystallize. The DMT crystals start to form. So I remember smoking this DMT on this one occasion after learning all of this, and suddenly I was standing next to this crystal clear water. It was beautiful. It was just this pool of beautiful clear water. And one of the beings that was there with me said, that's not water. I said, well, what is it? And they said, it's a very dangerous chemical, like what you use to get the DMT, like your lighter fluid. So they were just, saying that that's what that is, because that's what lighter fluid looks like. It's just clear, crystal clear. Without smelling it, you wouldn't know it was dangerous. So the being said, what I want you to do is I want you to go into the pool of this, chemical, and I want you to go all the way to the bottom. And I said, okay. I knew it was just, I'm in hyperspace. I don't have my physical body. I'm not going to die. So I thought, okay, I'm going in. So I jumped in and I swam all the way to the bottom, and I laid down on my back, and suddenly these crystals, these DMT crystals, started growing all around my body.
Wow.
And I was suddenly realizing that these DMT crystals are the lights. They're the lights, like the lights of consciousness. And they're growing in this toxic chemical.
Wow.
It's just like, it was such a beautiful metaphor for the light and darkness.
Yes.
We have to remember, we are stronger than we think we are.
Yes.
We are stronger than the elites want us to believe.
Right.
It goes back to the despair again. They want us to feel despair. They want us to stay stuck in despair. They want us to feel that the darkness is more powerful than the light. They want us to feel that fear is stronger than love. And it's for us, once again, to remember that there is all of this support that's out there. Our guides, our higher selves, these beautiful beings that you visited with the heart, they're reminding you, this is a temporary journey that we chose to take. And we chose to take this because it's for our spiritual journey. It's for our spiritual development. And sometimes we have to get so deep in the illusion, so immersed fully in the illusion for it to be real enough for us to grow. Right. It's no different than the virtual reality.
Right.
It doesn't, if you've ever done virtual reality with very basic constructs, it's like just stick people in a 3-dimensional reality. That's not what matters. What matters is the stability of the virtual reality. If no matter which way you look, if there's no cracks in the facade, if there's no glitches in the matrix, if it's just everywhere you look, it's just virtual reality. But let's say I look over here really quickly and it takes like a minute to catch up with me. It breaks the illusion.
Right. There are a lot of glitches in the matrix.
But that's part of it too. Eventually, you do have to wake up from the illusion. Right. But in the beginning, it's partly for our benefit to get completely lost in the illusion. That's sometimes why I take out-of-body experiences, because sometimes I have to leave my body. Sometimes I have to go to another world and get completely lost in that world to find my way back to who I am. It's no different from what I do sometimes when I go camping. Here I am in London and I live with 8 million other people and I can feel lonely. So last year I went on a camping trip to what I called my lonely loch. It's like a lake, if you want to call it a lake, but in Scotland they call them lochs because they're like sort of, they're slightly different from lakes. But anyhow, I remember setting up my camp, setting up my tent, and I was now connecting with nature. And I think this is part of the issue for us with exploring consciousness on a place like this. We live in cities where we're being bombarded by man-made radiation, and it's completely overwhelming nature. And the nature in the cities, I'm not just talking about trees, I'm talking about the Schumann resonance, the Schumann frequency, 7.83 hertz. It's one of the natural frequencies of the planet. And if we're not getting enough of the Schumann resonance on a daily basis, our nervous system, we're going to become stressed, anxious. We're not going to sleep very well. There's going to be so many issues that we're going to start to face. Our immune system is going to suffer. And so this is one of the other reasons. Something I was shown in a recent out-of-body experience was I came out of body and I was in the Earth's atmosphere during this experience. And they kept making these sounds, the sound of Om. And it was like, they kept doing these sounds. And I knew the sound was the effect of the Schumann resonance. I knew they were connected somehow. And then they showed me that the man-made technologies, some of these technologies are adversely, negatively affecting us physically, as well as psychically, because they want us to stay in the dark for longer than is necessary. Literally, this world, let's make no mistake, this world has gone from its original plan to something different. It's literally as if it's been hijacked. This virtual reality has been hijacked by, it's a true matrix. And I remember I took a magic mushroom trip last year, and right in the middle of the experience, I had this classic ET type experience with what you would call the gray aliens. And there was a few of them standing around me, and one of them was like, got really curious. He was like, I want to merge with your body. I want our consciousness to merge. And my guides were there. I could feel everybody was there. And so this gray alien merged with my consciousness. Wow. And was now like in control of my body, and it stood up. And I could feel its surprise. I could feel its curiosity, to this body, to this alien body that it was now occupying. And then my guides, I could feel them. They were getting a little bit nervous because it felt like it was now a little bit out of control. Right. And they suddenly, one of them disappeared, came back, what seemed like half an hour later, but was probably in hyperspace minutes. It was only like, seconds. And actually brought another part of me from a more advanced reality. I called him Shaman Todd. He was like this great advanced version of me. And instantly he knew what to do. We have this massive rose quartz sphere crystal. It weighs about 100 kilos and it sits in our lounge. And immediately this Shaman Todd took the energy from that crystal, just literally popped the energy from the crystal right into my body, and it forced that alien consciousness back out of my body. And then suddenly he started, there was a few more beings that came in, and they all started telling me about, they were like, we want you to listen carefully. And suddenly I heard this frequency, and it felt like it wasn't natural. It felt unnatural. And they said, this is the frequency between Earth and higher realities. It's been hijacked. It's different. And then suddenly they plugged me in to another star that's in Andromeda galaxy, where they have a higher civilization, and their signal between their planet and these higher states of consciousness, it was like somebody taking a crystal bowl, and it was so clear, it was so clean, and they said that is the difference between your two worlds right now. Your frequency, the fundamental frequency between your world and these higher worlds, there's other frequencies that are overlaying it that are not natural, and they are keeping the consciousness of the planet down purposely. And it's there's more darkness than there needs to be, but they didn't seem ultimately like concerned as if it was like life and death kind of stuff. They were like, you can, as a species, you can still evolve through this. And they were just reminding me that all that support, all of that information, all of that wisdom is there. But like you were saying earlier, can we come together and make this big quantum leap that we need to make? I believe we can. I think one of the things that is necessary for all of us to do is to remember that when we're meditating on a daily basis, because I think this is important. If you don't have a daily spiritual practice, what are you doing?
Yes.
What are you doing?
Yes.
Okay, so first and foremost, again, you have to look at home. You can't look at the world and say, I'm so angry at the world. You need to look closer to home. Sure. You need to get angry at what you see local to home. Why am I not meditating? Why am I, avoiding? What am I avoiding? Why am I avoiding doing this work? And so I say to people, look, build your energy. Remember to ground your energy, get the Schumann energy by walking barefoot on the planet to get some of the pulsed magnetic frequencies of the earth. Go into the nature, go into the woods, get away from a big city so you can get the Schumann Resonance, or maybe get some brainwave entrainment tools. Like we sell Pandora Star. It's one of our favorite tools. We use other brainwave entrainment stuff like sound, using frequencies to help get the Schumann Resonance on a daily basis. Because if you're not getting it, you might as well be like on the International Space Station, like an astronaut, because outside of the Earth's atmosphere, the Schumann Resonance doesn't exist. And so on board the International Space Station, they actually have to have a Schumann generator to generate that frequency. Otherwise, their bodies, their actual immune systems, their nervous system starts to suffer. Right. And it's no different from us. So we must remember to maintain it. So I say to people, meditate, build your energy, say things like, I am light, use mantras to build the energy within you. And then at the end of the meditation, let's say you've meditated for 20 minutes, half an hour. Everybody can afford 20 minutes. Let's say you've meditated for 20 minutes. You've really built the energy and you can feel it to the point where you have a surplus of energy. It's at that point you must now take part of that energy that you've built and give it to the collective. Literally focus that energy into the world, because this is what light beings do. They don't just build the energy and keep it for themselves. The most advanced aspect of consciousness is this generosity. It's like an adult spiritual being has learned the importance of generosity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just want to say, recently somebody said to me, don't just be like a person just sitting on the mountain being in a cave. And I just felt, no. I mean, I know yogis. I lived 10 years in India. I did a lot of spiritual practice, and I know yogis who live 20, 30 years, and they're not doing an easy job. They don't know. If people say like this, they don't know what they go through, what are they doing, and they're not doing that for themselves. They're doing it for the world. They radiate the energy, and it so much inner work, because they have to go through all that inner hell and everything. I mean, how much love you have to do that for people who not even understand that you're doing it for them.
For sure. And a lot of them, a lot of these monks, are doing their inner work. They are clearing lifetimes like Buddha did, clearing hundreds of lifetimes, so they can be, this instrument of light for the planet. And of course, just like in every walk of life, you're going to have some monks who are using it as a way to hide. They're hiding behind the veil of spirituality. But, do people not do that here in the city as well? Do we not do that in spirituality?
Or behind money or behind fame or anything. You can hide behind your, everything thing, Todd, I want to say I can talk hours to you. My little problem is right now, it's a good problem. I also do what I love. So I have a group here right now on Darkness Retreat, and they are sitting right now in the temple room waiting for me to come on chanting. And I just feel so sorry that I didn't take 3 hours off to talk to you. I thought like 1.5 hours would be enough, but it's not enough at all. And I have to invite you back again. I hope
It'll be my pleasure. It'll be my pleasure to come back again.
That is
I'm sorry. I'm sorry it's taken us so long for me in particular, to commit to coming on, but that's just me sometimes. I'm too busy, and I have to learn to make more time for things like this, because this is important for us to have these conversations.
Yes, that is very beautiful. I want to really say that it's so important right now. That is why I started this podcast and using this YouTube channel, because I'm very happy in my life and my work. But right now, I feel it's a really consciousness work with you. I'm in my process myself, up and downs and many things. I mean, you sure also, we all are, but that is also a collective work we have to do. And, they're very rare souls like you was a real deal, because there are a lot of let's say it, there are a lot of fake spiritual people as well, and also people who say they do astral projection and they don't. And right now, you can really feel in this kind of thing where Corona came, I could really feel everybody shows themselves who is on what level, and no matter how they hide it, you really see through right now. And this is what I feel like right now. I mean, very thankful for the way of we can at least come to technique together, that we use to also spread our love. So I really want you to be back on soon to again spread awareness. I want to hear more of your experiences, and let's share some techniques to help the people also.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I'd be very open to sharing some techniques for sure.
Super. Thank you, Todd. Please just tell about your Mind Spa, which is in London. This is so amazing, and people can visit you there. Are you open at this Corona time?
We're not open at the moment, mostly because it's a personal choice. I've started to burn out, and I need some more space. So I've taken some time for myself, but people can. I would definitely suggest people take a look at my YouTube channel. So if they just type my name into YouTube, they'll find my channel, and they can find some of my astral projection guided meditations if they want to try that stuff, or they can just hear me talking and giving lectures. So that's probably the best place.
That is so beautiful. You brought that on earth and you really downloaded. I mean, I for myself, I didn't put a lot of things in online courses and stuff. And now I'm realizing how good that would be to have that done before.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll just leave it on this one note. One of my YouTube videos, it's a guided astral projection meditation. It's got almost 400,000 views at the moment. And I've recognized something. That video is getting more and more powerful as every person uses it. I get more people are getting results now than they did in the beginning, because there's energy that builds around this. It's like a temple. The more people go to that temple, the more energy starts to build. And it's like the same with statues. People are projecting energy onto it. And it's like this meditation is getting better and better results because more and more people are using it. And I think that's why these YouTube channels and the podcasts are important. The more people that start to hear these messages, it just builds more and more energy around it.
Thank you, Todd. And what an amazing illusion we're living in.
Thank you so much for having me on. I feel blessed, and I'm really grateful to be able to share. So thank you.
I'm also, I have tears in my heart right now because I feel there's so much connection between so many beautiful souls, and you're one of them. Thank you, Todd.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I'm really honored. I'm really honored. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, see you soon.
Take good care.
Bye.